Hello.
Hi.
How's it
Nice to see
going?
you.
Yeah, you
It's
too.
going good. Going
Good.
good, going good.
I like your
Staying warm.
glasses.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Inspired by an oboe friend, so
oh,
that's the reason I
nice.
have them.
Nice. Where'd you get them from?
Walmart.
Oh, nice. That's
Very,
awesome.
I was like affordable style. That's right up my alley. Just like this
Yes.
$2 shirt from the same friend. That is one of my favorites now.
Nice. I love that. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Welcome to another episode of Meeting and Reading. My name is Logan Esterling. My guest this week is Mekhi Gladden. He is from Atlanta, Georgia. He began playing the oboe when he was 12. He's attended the Aspen Music Festival. He's played with the Atlanta Symphony, the Princeton Symphony, and he's currently at Curtis studying with Richard Williams. So thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for the really nice welcome. It's nice to speak with you again and talk about some reads.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So yeah, what are you planning to work on today, read-wise?
So today I just have this blank I tied. I usually clip them open, just because I really am serious about maintaining the opening, especially in the winter. So
Yeah,
I've just dipped it in some water to let it sort of soak a little, and then I'm gonna sharpen my knives in the meantime, and then get ready to sort of start whittling away, hopefully.
nice, nice. And so, do you scrape it all prior to like letting it sit?
Typically, at least now I once I tie the blank, I just scrape down the end of it so I can clip the tip open.
Nice.
It's still very, very thick at this point though, and then I just sort of let it sit that day, unless I'm in a rush and I really want to get it crowing that day at least. But I
Mm,
typically do let them sit for at least a day after I've tied them and clipped them open.
nice. I think Emily Breebach just joined.
Oh wow. Well, this is a
Hi.
very different. I remember learning reads with her. I had a very different uh, approach for sure. I think. Well, it's also because Atlanta is
Mhm.
so humid all the
Yeah,
time. So that's a place where I definitely would leave them closed so that the opening doesn't get too crazy. So I remember I started out
gotcha.
definitely doing that then. Um,
Nice. Yeah, I grew up in Alabama. So whenever I go back, all my reads are like,
yeah,
like they're like, what is this humidity? I mean, it's humid here in Seattle, but the southern like humidity is just a whole other thing, you
yeah.
know?
It's more of a blanket than it is like
Right.
a a weather
Exactly.
condition.
Right. You walk outside and you're like, I just stepped out of the shower. Like, here we go. Let me start my day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Mm,
Nice.
definitely getting used to the 2-degree weather we have today here. It's
Yeah. Have you done anything like different to your reads now that you've, besides you said clipping it open right now to kind of preserve the opening? Is there anything else you do, like having changed climates?
hmm. I've definitely found myself leaving more bark at the bottom,
Okay.
because that sort of gives it. It's interesting. I have to find vibration in a different way because I know taking away bark, at least for me, the way my reads have worked, taking away more down the bark usually fosters some really good vibration. But I kind of, but I also find that closes the read down pretty quickly.
Hmm.
So I definitely try to do that as more of a last resort here. It's more of the order in which I sort of compensate for things is very different because I am kind of prioritizing opening.
Yeah.
Because I find, especially here, if the opening's okay, I can sort of work around a lot more things. But as soon as the opening goes, it's kind of dead. So
Yeah.
I think it's stuff that's probably one of the other most important things is just not taking away too much bark at the bottom, um, sort of closing it down with the sides more than the scraping away from the bottom of the reed, at least.
Nice. Yeah. That's great advice. Yeah. What do you like how much bark do you leave at the bottom?
I should probably measure. I start with, I don't know if I can just guesstimate. I
Yeah.
probably start the read with at least like three, or like sorry point. Okay, what is it on the ruler? It's like 0.03 millimeters, whatever the. I just say three. Let me like actually tell you. Let's see. I can measure. Um, so my reads these days, if I can grab them. One second. So this
And
like
if
my.
anyone, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no. I was just getting out my favorite read right now. Uh,
Nice.
let's see. Oh wow, there's quite a bit. So right now I have about 5 millimeters of bark at the bottom
Okay,
on one of my
nice.
favorite reeds right now.
Mm,
The others are not as drastic, probably more around 3 millimeters,
mhm,
but that's a
nice.
lot more than I used to have. But what were you gonna say before?
Oh, I don't remember. It didn't really have to do with this, but I tend to leave like 3 to 5 millimeters
Hmm.
of bark. But sometimes I'll kind of um, like extend the back a little bit out of the hopes of like trying to open the reed slightly. So if like I have it um, pretty defined back at like 5 millimeters, I'll scrape off like a little bit of bark behind the back of the heart, or not the back of the
Hmm.
heart, the back of the back. And sometimes that can like help open the reed just a little bit.
Yeah,
That doesn't
yeah.
always last, but
Hmm.
yeah. So how do you what was I gonna ask? Oh, how what kind of cane do you use and what gouge do you use?
Mm. Right now I've been, because I need good reads right now. I've
Hmm.
been using. I have this right now, just Regati from Midwest that I bought like a long time. Well, not a long time ago in my standards, which was last summer.
Okay, yeah,
That I've been saving because it was really good. So I've just been saving it for whenever I need it,
nice.
and just kind of jumping in and out of other random canes I have, just because it was also during last summer I was lucky enough to get a bunch of cane from Mr. Woodham's to try,
Oh,
and I've just been sort of dipping in and out of these various canes that I have, that are all so different, which is really interesting. Some is like really hard cane, which
yeah,
I have never really worked with. So, but those reeds, the reeds, I think I made like one reed on it that I really liked, and it lasted forever, basically.
yeah. That
So,
is nice. Yeah,
but I find it's hard for me. It's just hard to work with cane like that. But if you do get a good
I
read out of
agree.
it, they can last for quite a while.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not always that like patient enough to work with hard cane,
Me
or
too.
super hard cane. Yeah. Someone
Do you
asked, this
prefer
is
like
reed
in the middle?
making. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think I prefer like somewhere in the middle. Yeah, medium, sometimes medium hard, like verging
Mm-hmm.
on harder, but um, yeah, definitely not super soft. Um, unless I
Mm-hmm.
have to make a read and play on it like that day, like I have a
Yeah.
concert,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
um, someone asks, this is remaking you guys are talking about, right? And yes, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
That so you brought up Richard Woodham's. That was actually one of the submitted questions. Like what is it like to study with him?
Mm. It's pretty. There's so. It's just very dynamic, I would say,
Yeah.
um, because we do so much work on sort of like musicality and really thinking of the way we do. So that means the way my lessons typically go is, um, the first 3 years usually of
Hmm.
studying with Mr. Woodhams, you do mostly just etudes,
Okay.
just because it's really about sort of learning to play the oboe really well and learning how to be very musical with taste and all of that. And so that way, when you do jump into orchestral excerpts and solo pieces, you just sort of you've been so well prepared for it,
Right.
like technically and everything, because, doing Fairling and Barrett, all the grand studies and Broad and Gillet and like all of that, by the time you're through that, everything else feels kind of easy and you really have sort of a sense for the music in a way that's very different from, I would say, before I really got through all of it. Um,
Yeah.
so at least a lot of our lessons were really going through that, and sort of, I would say I've really built my interpretations of music and having more complex interpretations, being more flexible with the way I think of things, especially not thinking so much so strictly about, things always have to phrase this way, being very free with it, but in a way that's makes sense and I can explain it musically is sort of
Yeah.
something I would say is very special about the lessons we've had. And yeah, I think that's pretty much where we spend a lot of our time. I know it's very interesting because we don't do a ton of reads. You'll like try
Hmm.
them and sort of give us tips and stuff if there's something we can adjust to like make it better, or tell us what kind of read we should be aiming for to play this kind of thing. And so we can work towards that. But we don't do a ton of like, sitting down and like, let me show you how to fix this on the read.
Mm-hmm.
It's more, we really, really focus on music, which I do appreciate a lot, because I definitely have gotten through so much stuff, and I feel really comfortable playing a lot of different things because I've just gotten through so much stuff in my time studying with him. And I still
that's
have
awesome.
some time left. Just
Yeah.
since I'm staying an extra year at Curtis.
Nice. Well, I think that's great. I think the approach to interpreting other music, especially like orchestral rep and etudes and stuff like that, or I mean excerpts and stuff like that. It's really helpful to have that kind of etude approach where like you're making the most musical like experience you can out of something that's not really that interesting, right? So
Yeah.
it teaches you how to like phrase something that maybe is not as obviously phrased as something like an orchestral excerpt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things I realized, well, the more I meet more people and colleagues and talk to them, like not even just oboists, but talk to them about how their lessons go and the way they study things, I realized I think the biggest thing that has set my lessons with Woodhams apart from a lot of people is that all the things you need to sort of learn how to play your instrument, we do from a musical perspective, which is like, if you want to learn how to double tongue or play fast notes, we're going to play Fairlang, and like, in a way, we like play it musically in a way that makes it easier. You know what I mean? It's like learn phrasing, because it's so interesting. I find that the hardest things I play, as soon as I start phrasing, they just get like twice as easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's one of those things where we sort of learn all of these, all of the skills necessary to be proficient. Sort of learning them through music and playing things that sort of would highlight that thing we need to work on, but then really making sure that music always comes first, because somehow I find that it helps inform my technique, especially when I'm thinking of it that way, because I know that's not something everyone does. It's like, it's not, sometimes like they'll get articulation exercises, like I've never done articulation exercises. It's always like phrase it this way and it makes the articulation sound better, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
nice. It also, like, I think when I was in college, or any college like oboist or musician in general will probably understand, like, you get so fixated on your technical like issues or problems, right? Sometimes focusing on that musical like goal just like alleviates all of the focus of like, oh gosh, can I like tongue this? Stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like it's like mind games in a way. You distract yourself from what's so scary, and then somehow you can make it fun.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Emily said, musical solutions to technical problems is such a valuable perspective. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Phrasing really helps. Yes.
I've been lucky enough to be indoctrinated in that philosophy.
Yeah.
I think that's great. So
yeah. Let's see. What about your staple and shape? What do you use for that?
Right now, well, I guess I've like sort of settled on this because I've been using this consistently for like almost a year now, which is, so there's the Midwest Steven Staple copies.
Okay.
They're not really, they don't really feel like Steven Staples in my opinion, but I still like them very, very much, and that's all I use now actually.
Nice.
I use the Steven Staples #2 thick wall silver.
Nice.
They just feel so stable to me and really, really resonant, I find, because at least at the time when I got them, they were recommended to me by my friend Kip, who just graduated. Well, he didn't just graduate. It's been 2020. He graduated in 2020, but that feels like not that long.
It does.
But yeah, he recommended them to me, and ever since I've kind of been addicted to them. Just because I really like, at least especially for my oboe, and it just gives my reeds a really good sense of stability, and also because they make them at 46.5, which is awesome.
Nice.
Because that I always have found that that's the perfect length for the kinds of reeds I try to make. it's like enough vibration without being out of control necessarily, which has always been my struggle. I mean, that's everyone's struggle with reeds, is balancing
Yeah.
that, getting enough vibration without it, getting crazy or being stiff because it doesn't vibrate enough. And the staples, I find that they sort of have that built in. I haven't really felt like I've had to work around them. When I scrape the reed, it kind of does what I want now.
Nice.
And I feel I owe a lot of that to the staple, I think, because as soon as I started consistently using them, my reeds have really, really gotten better, which is nice. Very,
Nice.
very
Yeah.
rewarding, especially.
And that's awesome. Yeah, consistency is such a blessing when you can find it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I should try I have like a Steven staple. I should do a comparison.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'd be curious to know. I recently got some of the Stevens 4 from Midwest. I haven't tried them yet, but they're sitting in my read desk, so I'll have to try them at some point.
I might go for it. I know, like, it's just sort of the size of the opening at the top is the change, and so like 4 must be. I would like to try that, especially just to. Well, part of my way to compensate, because what I've been told is basically that the larger opening sort of helps high notes sit up really well on the tube. But that's like part of the reason the shaper I'm using now is the Mac Pfeiffer, because I found that it's helped a lot with high notes. So I'd be interested to see if I tried that and the 4s if that would really just sort of give them a great cushion.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. What have you used shape-wise prior to using the Mac Pfeiffer?
My very, very first shaper was the Gilbert -1.
Okay.
And I haven't used that in a while. I don't know. I found it's a very, very stable shape, which is nice. I still find that I like narrower shapes, which is why I went for the Pfeiffer instead of the Mac Plus. But for a while I started off on the Gilbert -1, but then when I got to Curtis, I bought the Gilbert 1 to try, and I ended up using that for most of my time. I would switch back to -1 if I felt like my reeds got a little, like they were too flat or something. I would switch back to the narrower shape. But I found myself using Gilbert 1 mostly for a long time. But I have always, at least for me personally, my oboe journey has always been a battle, especially here in like the past couple years. It's always been a battle against flatness. I always find myself, if I'm ever out of tune, it's always flat, which is just very, very, very taxing, especially on the oboe. So I have just sort of gravitated towards these things that have helped me help my pitch be a little higher. So I think, especially after I went to Gilbert 1, I found that I really liked the way it sounded and I liked the amount of vibration I got, but I just could not get it to be, my high notes especially, to be up to pitch. So this Mac Pfeiffer has been very, very good for that, and especially once I switched staples, to really just sort of help that for sure. But I still like the -1. I find for me now, it feels like it's very easy for me to make a read on it because it's so stable. I can just sort of scrape until it vibrates, and then it's like, okay, but it doesn't give me enough vibration compared to the Mac that I'm using right now.
Nice.
So it's in my arsenal if I ever need it. So, but
definitely.
I'll see if I ever end up going back to it at some point.
Nice.
Everyone sort of changes over time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I'm using the Mac Plus, which I've used for years, and I'm happy with it. It's consistent, but I've been thinking about trying either the Mac Pfeiffer or the Mac Plus Plus, which I know is like not that different from the Mac Plus, but I'm curious about it. Angela said, Logan, all of your guests are trying to sell me the Mac Pfeiffer. Yeah, it's true. A lot of people have been suggesting the Mac Pfeiffer recently.
I mean, I understand why, because when I started using it, I was pretty sold pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I originally heard about it at Aspen because I know a lot of the students there were using it. And it just, I don't know. It really just did a lot of the things. It fixed a lot of the issues I'd been having consistently with my reads. And so it's really hard to argue against it, in my opinion. When it sort of, my high notes sat up and it had a very nice tone, and it was very stable in a way that I liked. It was very stable without being sort of stuffy or anything. The way I just found that the vibrations, the way they traveled down the reed, were very different in a way that I liked with the Mac shapes in general for me. But I do one thing though for sure. My Gilbert 1 gives me a ton of vibration. So occasionally, if I'm just having issues with that, I can go back and just sort of start from there.
Nice. Yeah. Someone
Have you
asked.
experimented? Oh, sorry, what were you gonna say?
Someone commented and asked, could you guys speak about balancing a read?
Mm. Do you have any insights?
Yeah, sure. So, I would say I always start balancing from the top down. So I always focus on balancing the tip and the plateau first.
Hmm.
And I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up is like taking too much out of the back too soon, right? And then like
Yeah,
everything's confusing.
yeah.
Um, so when I like scrape out my blanks, I start defining the tip and scrape off, and then I go back to where I want the plateau to start, and I'll take off bark there, and then I
Hmm.
start taking off like both of those layers at the same time. So I'm
Hmm.
like scraping from the back of the heart through to the end of the tip, but when I'm scraping, I'm blending and defining the transition, right? Kind of that magic, like
Yeah, the magic spot.
blend define like thing. Um, and so I make sure I do that until I can like peep on the read and really give it like my full air.
Yeah,
But it's
absolutely.
still responsive enough. I don't have to like when I aspirate it, it doesn't just there's not just
Yeah.
like blowing sound.
Mhm.
I can still get nice response. And then once I have that, then I'll start putting in the back.
Mhm.
And I find that kind of approach to balancing helps a lot. Um, yeah. Do you have any advice for balancing?
That sounds pretty similar to what I do. As far as I really do try to not mess with the back until the very end, or at least until the the plateau and well, I guess I use heart. The
Yeah,
heart and
yeah,
tip are very pretty balanced. I try to get it to where, um, I mean, the way I kind of have been doing it is, um, I get the tip to a point where I think the tip is this is like a thickness of the tip where I'm like I don't want it much thinner than this, and then I
hmm
sort of balance the heart to that. So and then so that way I can get sort of a peep out of it, and then I put
nice,
it in the back at that point, just very very lightly and carefully. I don't try to dig in too much too early, um,
nice.
and usually at that point it just feels like a very very hard read. But I also try to make sure that when I get to the point, it's not really flat. Um, I
Yeah,
really really am now especially trying to never really let the read get flat, because I find that it's really, really at least now it's really really hard for me to get a read to get up to pitch once it's already gotten there.
mm,
It's really I mean it's significantly easier since you always have to take off cane to do a read. You can't. It's a lot easier to go from above. If the read's
definitely.
just slightly on top, you can just take off the heart, and it usually does something positive.
Yeah,
Versus clipping and worrying about the balancing changing every time you clip it because it's flat. That's I find
right.
a clip is never a clip. There's always something else that changes. But I find that when I take off the heart, um, I don't know, it's pretty consistent what happens. It gets a little flatter and it responds better. So it's especially if you
Yeah,
just evenly do it. So I find that a lot safer than worrying about clipping and then throwing off the entire balance potentially. So I
yeah,
definitely sort of go about it in that way. Um,
nice. Yeah, and I also have to say about balance that it's really important, like the thickness of the parts in relation to one another. So
for sure.
I think like if you have taken too much out of the tip, or too much out of the heart, or even too much out of the back, um, you really have to balance from I guess whatever you've done the most, right? So if you've taken like way too much out of the tip, you need to rebalance the
Yeah.
heart and back to
Mhm.
match that level, right?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. I try to
someone,
scrape in a way that like prevents that basically, which is taking out like when I am putting in the parts of the reed, I focus my scrapes on the parts that I know will need the most out from the
yeah,
beginning. And I really am not afraid of just leaving bark on the sides of the heart or like leaving a ton in the middle of the tip because I
mm,
know I'm gonna have to take it away. But those are the places where as soon as you go too far, you're kind of done. So
it's over.
I
Yeah,
usually I sort of put the reed in where like the sides of the tip will be pretty thin, like by the time I'm sort of ready to start finishing it, and then the sides of the heart will be pretty thin, and then usually at that point, it's like, it just feels like a hard read. And as soon as I touch those places, I just like breathe on them and it starts working, which is sort of
Yeah.
how my go-to is just like set the read up for success, because I am never in the mood to really futz around with a read that is not cooperating.
Yeah. I like that advice. Yeah, that's good advice. Antonio asked, "What type of oboe do each of you play?"
Mm,
I just recently got a B series, Luray B
so exciting.
series. Yeah, I'm loving
Oh,
it. It's just
you already
so
know how
so.
jealous I am.
It's I honestly like I just never thought I would get one this quickly. It happened kind of fast.
Hmm.
But yeah, I feel like the B series compared to either the standard bore, AK, or the Royale, I would say it's somewhere between like an AK and a Royale, and that I feel like I can really blow into it,
Hmm.
and give air, and it accepts it, right? It doesn't like
Yeah,
shy away from too much air like an AK does.
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
but what about you? What do you play?
Right now, I'm playing on an AK
Mm.
that's from like 1996, but it was someone bought it. It's a really, really nice oboe. Um, Someone bought it and like sort of left it in the closet for like a long time, just sort of simmering. Maybe that's why it's so good. But it
Yeah,
was just sort of there. It wasn't played a ton, and so when I got it, it looked and sort of felt newish because it hadn't been played a whole lot. And I mean, it's just sort of standard AK L series, which I've been told was a good sort of set of oboes by Luray.
nice.
But yeah, I also like a funny thing is I have this little thumb rest thingy because I have a I have like a hypermobile thumb
Oh
that
wow.
so I have to have this sort of special thumb rest to assist with that, which is always looks a little bulky on my
Yeah,
elbow. Um, but yeah, it's a nice instrument. Nothing, no special bells and whistles. Nothing I would say super interesting about it. I like the sound a lot.
yeah,
Very, very glad to have it, especially as a first oboe to get.
yeah, yeah. That's
Um,
awesome. And what about your journey to the oboe? So, did you play another instrument before you played oboe?
I started in sixth grade on clarinet and oboe at the same time, but before then, I was in the school band in fourth and fifth grade playing percussion actually. Um, and I mean, I don't know why that happened. That was a bad decision, but I'm glad that I ended up doing what I'm glad I ended up with the oboe because it originally I just wanted to play clarinet because I have an older brother who played saxophone and I wanted to do something like that because I thought it was really cool. And my band director, who was the same band director he had, was saying, you know, we need oboists because we don't have any right now. And so there was me and two other people who just all like decided to start the oboe, and she brought in this local teacher to give us lessons for a couple months so we could, you know, sort of get started and not develop any super bad habits from the beginning,
Yeah,
which is really nice. And I think that it set me up as best as I could for someone who was just going to be playing oboe randomly in the band sometimes.
yeah.
Uh,
No, that's great. Yeah,
but yeah, that was how it started, and then um, ended up picking oboe. Oboe won out after a little bit of saxophone at a time. Tried learning the flute, like played clarinet up until I graduated high school. But I started taking lessons on oboe in 10th grade with Emily Bebach of the Atlanta Symphony, and then
nice.
at that point, the rest was history.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Fell in love with the oboe.
Yeah. What made you choose Curtis?
Um, Honestly, it was an that was I mean it's an interesting journey. So I mean I originally was not planning on auditioning,
Hmm.
um, because I was worried about sort of the well I didn't think I was going to get in first of all, and then second of all I was worried about like sort of the potential competitive atmosphere, the stress of going, and like because it's a very interesting place, and just
Yeah,
there's a lot of external stressors and internal stressors that can make it very tough
yeah,
to attend. But the principal oboist of the Atlanta Symphony really sort of helped encourage me to end up doing it because I wasn't
nice.
really planning on doing it in the beginning, and then worked on it with my tried and true Miss Brebach
Yeah,
for the audition, and before you know it, I was I was accepted. Um, And I don't know, it was really just, it seemed like an opportunity I couldn't really pass up, because I mean, even when I got in, I still didn't really know what it meant to go to Curtis. And
Yeah.
I hadn't like heard about it until my senior year, so I wasn't really sure what was like. I didn't know like really what it was, because especially getting into classical music, I got in very late. I had never listened to orchestral pieces until 10th grade, so
Yeah.
I didn't know where the oboe sat in the orchestra. Like the first time I went to this side by side when I was playing with my teacher, I like sat in the string section, because I was like, I mean, in the band, this is where the oboe sits. So I
Right.
sat there,
Right
and
up
violins
front.
came to me, and they were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I don't know." So then eventually I figured out where I was supposed to sit.
That's so
So
funny.
that was I was definitely sort of thrown into it
Yeah.
quite a bit, but
I love that.
very lucky to get the opportunity I did
Yeah.
to attend Curtis.
That's great. I also got into classical music pretty late. I used to play saxophone, and I was at an honor band, and we played a band transcription of March Slav by Tchaikovsky.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like,
I've done
oh
that
my
too.
gosh, this music is like nothing like any band music I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And that like kind of started me down this path of what is this world that I've never really
Yeah.
explored. Yeah, so it made like college really interesting because I had so much to like, take in and learn. Um, yeah.
That's so cool, though. I'm glad you picked the oboe.
Me too. I was like, I really wanted to play in an orchestra, and I almost picked the clarinet, but I wanted a challenge, and I wanted, I don't know, I fell in love with the sound, obviously, of the oboe. Yeah, and I feel lucky that I ended up on this path.
I also just love how many oboists just never even thought that this is what they're gonna do.
Right.
Like, I either find that oboists, that was their thing, and they'd heard about it when they were young, and like, oh, I want to play that weird thing that's in the
Yeah.
orchestra, or they played the saxophone or something, or the clarinet or flute, and they later on decided, I just want to try it out, and then before they knew it, they were hooked.
Yeah. I love that. They just kind of fall into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once it gets you, it's really hard to go back.
Yeah, definitely.
You hear track 4 once, and you're just,
It's over. Yeah. Bye. I do wonder if like how many people would stick with the oboe if they knew like starting out the reed troubles. Yeah, because I didn't know. None of us
Me
know.
either. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder too. Honestly, I wonder. I was thinking about this today randomly because I knew we were going to talk about reeds.
Yeah.
What is the future of the oboe if and when maybe plastic reeds are available and good? What's gonna is there gonna be an influx of oboists that are all just dying to try it since they can buy a decent reed to practice on?
Yeah. Oh, that's such an interesting point. Yeah, I've thought about that too. Yeah, I don't know. Will we move away from cane? I mean, it does produce like something about the tone is obviously different than a plastic reed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, who knows?
The future can hold anything,
Yeah. Have you tried any plastic reeds like the Legers or anything?
I tried a couple. I was very lucky that at Aspen, Mr. Voss let me try a couple, and I was honestly very shocked by how good. Well, okay, so they've been working, on it for a long time to really sort of figure out what they want the ideal product to be. But
yeah,
I was very pleasantly surprised that they could do what they did. Like some of them, the ones that she had, of course, she had gone through a ton to pick out the ones that were, really decent.
Yeah.
But they were just like very, very stable and just sort of, I don't know, they felt like what I would consider like one of my just like okay reads, something that you could really practice on.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because the things that made it not a good read, it didn't feel like, how you can sort of feel in the cane where there's something wrong.
Yeah.
I couldn't really tell like what was wrong. I was just like, it's like it does things, but it's just something is weird, and I can't really tell you what about it wasn't to my liking, because it was it didn't look like a normal reed. And I was like, oh, if I just took some out of the back, it would feel. But when I tried, I was like, it's just something's different. It's
Yeah.
missing something.
It's
And I
like
couldn't
off.
really put my
Yeah.
finger on it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's very interesting. If I hope you get to, or have you tried any, or by chance?
I actually did. I got one of the medium ones,
Hmm.
and it's like they're just much harder than American reeds. So,
Yeah,
but I'm
much
curious
higher.
about like adjusting it and trying to get it to do something that I want,
Yeah, me
right?
too. To scrape on it, what would
Yeah,
happen?
yeah. Did Miss Duvas adjust hers?
I'm not sure. I want to say yes, but I honestly don't remember for sure.
That's fair.
We didn't spend a ton of time. I think it was like maybe twice that we sort of messed around with the Leger. Um,
Nice.
but yeah, I would. That's something. Yeah, I haven't thought about
There's
it in a long time.
Yeah, they're supposedly coming out with the American scrape, but who knows when that will actually
Yeah,
happen?
I'm sure 2020 delayed that as well,
Yeah.
just like everything else. Hmm. All right, this reed is making sound.
Yay.
Ready?
Step
Let's
one.
start. Hmm. Are you just working on a blank also, or?
Yeah, I'm just scraping out some blanks.
Hmm. How do you usually start your, like, do you let them sit for a day after tying, or do you sort of?
Yeah, so I generally when I'm making my own reeds, I will um, tie it on and then I'll basically scrape it out to look like a reed. Get
Hmm.
the tip in, define transition, start the heart, and put in the back.
Hmm.
Um, but recently so I have a reed business, and I just find that sometimes that method is a little too time consuming, like it right up front.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
I wanted to be able to just tie a bunch and then, scrape a bunch in one sitting rather than
Hmm.
doing it kind of all together.
Yep.
So now I will tie my reeds, and just scrape the bark off like the top half
Yep.
basically really evenly and then clip it open. Well, I'll thin the very end of it, clip it open, and let it sit for at least a day. Um, yeah, and I find that works fine. Um,
Okay.
I do like the like springiness of a new piece of cane that I just tied, right? And something about like getting it vibrating right away, I find really helps it settle in.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. Hmm.
yeah, that's my general process, and then I'll take another 2 or 3, maybe 4 days to finish.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
Angela said, I want so badly to like the Leger reeds, but the ones I've tried are too hard for me to blow. Yeah, I
wow.
totally agree.
Hmm.
And like getting the the second octave notes, like the left hand
Oh
notes to
man.
like sit up
Yeah. Sit up.
is, uh, I don't get it, but
Beyond me.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then Christine said, I've never played a plastic reed. It is what it is, right? Yeah. You can't
Yep.
really adjust it, I imagine. Yeah, I think on their website they say you can like lightly adjust it, but I can't imagine that you can do very much, right? It has to be
Yeah.
very minimal.
Well, would it
Um,
respond the way Kane does is my question. Like if I take out the back because the opening is
right,
too big, would it just collapse or would it,
right.
what would happen? I really
Yeah,
don't, I can't say. So,
yeah. I'm so curious. I wish I just had a bunch to mess around with, but they're quite expensive. So,
yep. Hmm. Do you have any favorite oboe pieces right now?
ooh, good question. Um, I mean, this is a popular one, but the Strauss is one thing I've been working on a lot
Mhm.
recently. I thought I could play it back in high school, and you can imagine
Same.
how that went. Yeah, and it was fine, but I haven't. I was like, what, I need to put this aside for a few years and come back. So, um,
Mhm.
I worked on it in college, but recently I've been reworking it. That and the Martinu Concerto, I really like that one as well. Um,
Did you know those pieces were written within 10 years of one another?
I did
And yet
not.
they're so different. I did a report on that recently, which is it was
Wow.
so funny you mentioned those two.
Yeah, no, they are very different pieces. It's so
Yeah.
interesting. That's interesting. What about you? What are you working on?
Right now for the oboe recital for that's coming up in March, I'm working on 2 Telemon fantasies, the number 12 and number 8, with the E minor one and the G minor one, which has been fun. I'm honestly surprised that I made it this far without ever working on one. Because I mean, I'd heard some of them, but I never really thought to, print it out and play them.
Yeah.
I think they're a lot of fun because I really do like playing Baroque things just because of the freedom and just I don't know. I like it has a sense of energy that I don't find in a lot of other pieces or like a lot of other periods of music, which I find particularly fun.
I totally agree. Yeah.
I'm excited to record it soon because I have to have it recorded by like the 19th or something. So it's worked up now, and I just sort of have to get to that. But taking a weekend sort of break.
Nice. Good.
From
Good for you.
practicing so much and letting it sort of sink in, and then I'll really record it and go into it.
Nice.
Okay,
Where's your recital going to be streamed?
It'll be streamed. It'll be part of the Curtis recital series, which if you have to go to the Curtis website, and it's usually on the front page of like you can click to view recitals, and the way they have been doing it is you have to basically register, and then they'll send you an email with the link to view it. And this won't be. I think this is on March 12th is when it'll get released.
Nice.
I think also on their website they have like a full calendar of every recital, and you could go and find it, and I think go ahead and you might be able to register already actually, and just
nice
in order to view it. So looking forward to that. It'll be interesting because of course all the oboes are all in different places. Well, actually, well, not exactly. Another oboist from my studio just recently arrived here. So
that's awesome.
That's really cool. We're gonna get to view it together, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Once he's out of quarantine, but it's nice because last year's recital, of course, got canceled because they're typically in March, and that was when COVID really became a big issue here in the States, at least. So this is going to be a second chance to sort of redeem that.
Nice.
So I feel very lucky to do.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I'm so jealous that you get to have in-person reed making sessions. That'll be so fun.
I'm looking forward to it when he's out of quarantine. I mean, the only thing is I don't want to add any oboe stress to anyone's life, but I hope it can be positive.
Yeah.
Because I know it's really nice making reads with people, but if you're both having a bad read day, it's very easy for things to just become very pessimistic. So I'm hoping to put up some music, make some jokes, and just enjoy the experience.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. That was the most fun in college that I had, was just hanging out in the read room.
Yep. There's nothing better than a good read room.
Yeah.
Okay, this read is coming into form, I think, which is nice.
Yay.
I don't want to speak too soon now, how they
go. One of the submitted questions we had, this person is experiencing issues with finishing, and they said they continuously get bad crows. I'm not exactly sure what that means. But yeah, do you have any thoughts on what they could do differently?
Honestly, for me, I really don't do much to my reads based on what the crow is doing. Because I find that crows can be very deceiving. I'll have some reads that have a beautiful crow, but then I try to play it and they don't vibrate enough or something. Even though I don't have a really wild crow, I find for me, I tend to I can tell very small things based on the crow. As far as if it doesn't have a low crow, then I usually know that the heart is too thick relative to something, and so I can usually blend that somewhere in order to sort of get a low crow in there. Finishing, I find for me, finishing is scary because you're taking out of the places that need it, but if you go too far, it can ruin the read, basically. So I sort of have an order, like I was saying earlier, it's sort of an order of where I will take out last, just to assure that I have the lowest likelihood of ruining it. So making sure that the sides of the heart and the middle of the heart is not too thin too soon, making sure that the middle of the tip isn't too thin too soon. You really don't have to take a lot of out of the bat. You can make a good read without almost taking anything out. So I really sort of save that for last, because I find if you have a good blend between the tip and the heart, you really can take almost as much as you want out of the back and it'll still be okay.
Yeah.
But I think the most important thing for finishing is a sharp knife.
Amen. Yeah.
do not touch your reed without a sharp knife. I mean, I've definitely have been very stubborn and have not listened to that for a long time.
Yeah.
But especially because what you'll do, especially when you're finishing, you'll compress the cane and it won't vibrate if you're not using a sharp knife. And that's one of those things where you can find yourself, the reed just is flat and it'll never get up to pitch because you're not taking cane off, you're just compressing it more and more.
Yeah.
And also sharp knife, helps you prevent taking corners off. It helps you prevent sort of making all kinds of mistakes when the cane comes off where you want it every time. So
Yeah.
at least those are my tips for finishing. And also just going very slow is
Yeah.
the other thing. When I'm rushing, I always make more mistakes than when I really just take my time and feel every bit of cane that's coming off of the reed.
Yeah. That's great advice. Yeah, I totally agree. The sharp knife is such a blessing. And
Yeah,
it's so important.
that's why the way I do it now is I sharpen 3 knives before starting the scraping, and then I
Nice.
just go through all of them by the time I finish one reed. Usually it's like it works out that they can all stay sharp. Well, not all stay sharp, but like one of them gets dull and I switch to the other one, and that one gets
Nice.
dull. And then by that time I'm finishing it when I'm on my 3rd knife. And then I can just
Nice.
finish it and put it away for the day, or practice on it so it like plays in and I can see what it really needs. Ooh, that's another thing. Playing music on your almost done reads.
Yes.
Like play an excerpt to really see if it's holding up to your standards. And a lot of times it'll tell you what it needs when you really play it in.
Yeah, and I think, like you're saying, playing an excerpt rather than just like your noodle or something,
Yeah, exactly.
I think is really helpful.
Another thing.
Yes.
The reed is over soaked by the time you're finishing it. You need to let it sit because it will surprise you with how much better it gets when it just dries out a little. Because when it gets over soaked, it can make your tip feel like it's heavier than it is.
Yeah.
It can make your heart feel like it's thicker than it is, which is very dangerous because you will take out more and then it'll dry and it won't work. It also can feel more open than it actually is, and then you take out of the back and then it closes down and it never works. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you see me like wetting only with my mouth, pretty much like it's very dry here, so I'm doing it a lot, but I really try hard not to let my reed get over soaked, especially early on.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Especially for younger reed makers who don't have as much experience like soaking reeds and like finding that right balance, I find that, like you're saying, creates a lot of problems early on. Yeah, and in terms of like letting it sit, I always like, if I've been working on a reed for 10 minutes and it's not where I want it and I'm not exactly sure what to do, then I'll put it away and
Yeah.
like, let it sit. You've done work on it. It's gotten better than it was, so that that is
Yeah,
good.
exactly. It really is. I think as I've gotten older and made more reads, I definitely have found that patience has actually just been the most helpful, because
Yes.
it's so easy to feel like you can sort of remedy things quickly. But
Yeah.
honestly, I have to remember it's a piece of wood, and wood changes so much that sometimes letting it just sort of settle in really does. It'll start responding to your scrapes better, and which just makes the whole process a lot less scary.
Yeah.
So I think if that's the one thing I would say I'm glad I learned, is just to not be afraid to let reeds not let reeds wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, language. Not be afraid to let reeds wait. Yes,
There you go.
that could be a tongue
Nice.
twister. Not be afraid to
Yeah.
let reeds wait.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's so important. And definitely something I'm like, the more reads I make, the more I am like, I'm just gonna let it rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also therapeutic to just be like, it's out of my control.
Yes. Oh, yes, it
Give it
is.
to the universe to fix it.
Yeah. Oh, and going back to like a sharp knife, I think having a sharp knife will also help kind of decrease the amount that the reed changes between settings, right?
Oh, for
Because
sure.
you are not compressing as much, so it's not gonna, grow back as much
Yeah.
as it normally would.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That is true. Yeah, I haven't thought about that. Yeah. because another thing, yeah, when the reed comes back out of the case and it's suddenly very different, it's likely that the cane was just compressed.
Yeah.
Let's see. I might be ready. Sorry, my friend is practicing some very
Oh,
cool
nice. Sounds nice.
I'm gonna actually try this reed, see what it's doing. It's definitely too hard, but I'm very surprised it's working as well as it is already.
Yeah.
Just gonna.
Sounds like there's a reed in there.
There is a reed in there. I believe in it. I'm gonna put the energy out there that it's gonna work.
Yeah.
Hope for the best.
Is your friend practicing sing songs?
I don't know
No.
what he's playing actually.
I thought I heard the sing songs for a second, but I'm
He is
just
known to play
imagining
quite a few transcriptions, so yeah, I wouldn't put
Okay.
it past them.
Nice.
Especially if sometimes we'll play things like to mess with one another. Like I think today I was just messing around I was just playing what is it? The movement from Pictures, that's the castle where the saxophone solo is or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And the next thing I know, he picks up his trumpet and is playing it down the hall. It's like,
Nice.
He heard me. So. I need to define the tip just a little more for this to cooperate.
Let's see. Another submitted question we had was, how do you get like your desired tone when you're finishing? Which is kind of a loaded question. That's not that's not like a definite answer, but what are some things that you do to ensure you get the tone that you want?
Honestly, for me, I find that the reed has to have a big enough opening for it to have a good sound. Because I've made reeds that feel very good and are in tune and respond, but when the opening is kind of small and not really springy, like a springy opening, one that sort of bounces back where you can rest your lips on it and it doesn't just close.
Yeah.
I find those reeds in general just have a sort of a deeper sound to them, which I like. For me, yeah, I really, my best sounding reeds tend to have the biggest openings. So at least that's for me personally. That's what I found is, if I can get the opening I want, the reed tends to sound pretty good.
Nice.
And I also feel safer scraping a lot more because I'm not worried about it closing.
Yeah.
Let's see. This reed's gonna need a clip. Get out my trusty gems.
Nice. I love those.
Yeah. One thing, I need to actually do this again. I had a friend once who just made a bulk order and got like a bunch of people in on it, which was so nice because the cost was so much less.
Oh my gosh.
Just do that again.
I want to do that. If you do that, let me know.
Yeah, I will definitely. I was thinking about it, like making a Google Doc and giving a bunch of people access, and then people signing up for monthly shipments of gems subscription.
Oh my gosh, yes.
To the gem shipments.
Please. Yeah.
All right, more clips. It'll be there. I think the only good thing about cold, dry weather too is that my reeds don't puff up when I'm making them. I find that I can finish them a little faster, which is nice.
That is nice, yeah.
What's the weather like there right now?
It's actually really snowy. We've had this which Seattle doesn't normally get that much snow. We probably have, I don't know, a foot of it outside, which is like honestly probably the most snow I've ever seen in my life, like where I live. So yeah, it's interesting. All my reads are a little bit closed and sad the last few days, but
I get that.
Yeah.
Do you ever do the twist thing to get a bigger opening?
I don't know. What is that?
This is the thing I learned at Aspen, which is when you're tying the reed. Let me just like grab a tube somewhere. When you're tying the reed, I don't know. This was like a life hack to me because it's surprisingly effective, even though it scared me the first time I saw it. But sorry, this is a piece of English horn cane because I don't have any like shaped pieces right now. Well, I I always shape and immediately tie on because I'm afraid of warping or whatever. But
Yeah.
what I do is when I'm tying the reed on, you like angle it so that it's flat based on where the oval shape is. I put it on there and I do like a couple loops so that it's starting to close. It's basically sealing, and then I actually turn the cane to the right, which basically sets the cane up so that the points on the oval are sort of pushing out against the cane, which helps it keep it opening. Which I found for me, like ever since I started doing that, I haven't really had a closed reed, which is, and you can do it pretty extremely and get like a really giant opening, especially if it's a piece of cane that was going to do that anyways. And for me personally, that's also changed the game for me because I'm not nearly as afraid of a piece of cane being too closed, because whenever I do that, it seems to always end up with a decent opening at least.
Nice. I definitely want to try that. I'll probably try that later today. That's awesome.
I just love read hacks.
Yeah.
We need cheat codes. It's hard enough,
Please, yes.
Decent. A little bit crazy though. I could refine it some more.
Yeah, I'd rather have a reed that was too open and work with that than a reed that's too closed.
Yeah, exactly. So closed reeds are very sad.
Yeah, because at least you can, work on a reed to close it down, whereas like working on a reed to open it is nearly impossible, it feels like,
It's more like magic.
Yeah, exactly. If it happens, yeah, you have powers. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, another submitted question we had, which was kind of fun. What are some pieces you can use to serenade people?
Huh. That's an interesting question.
Yeah. I have to say, like the start, like the A section of the second romance is really gorgeous.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's such a good answer. I'm like trying to think of something. Maybe. I mean, there's the Claroshigon romance is maybe the first one. I don't know.
Yeah, nice.
I thought the introduction of the second movie, the Sassans.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, the whole thing. Maybe not the whole thing, but some parts of it. Maybe like the first page or something.
Yeah. No, that's gorgeous. Yeah. Yeah, I'm struggling with what else.
Huh.
The Strauss is kind of serenade-y, I guess. Like especially the second movement.
Oh yeah,
just so gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's an interesting. I like that question.
Yeah.
Thinking about make a playlist of oboe serenades.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Honestly, a lot like Bach.
Yes, I was just
like the wedding cantata.
Yes.
Such a nice. I love that piece.
So gorgeous. If I need a good cry, I'll listen to that.
Definitely. Yeah. Pieces to cry to.
Yeah. That's another interesting question.
I need the clip.
Well, it looks like you're about to finish this read right on time. We're just out of time.
Oh, wow. Well, it's good time. Well, if anyone ever asks how long it takes to make a read, there you go.
Yeah.
Here we go. It's definitely gonna have to sit because it's doing that thing where it feels like I need to take more off, but it's not really responding to that. So
yeah.
This will be great tomorrow.
Awesome. Well, thank you for everyone who tuned in, and thank you so much, Mekhi, for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was so fun to chat with you. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the rest of your time at Curtis, and have fun with your in-person read room hangs. That'll be awesome.
Yep, you're welcome to join. There'll be lots of reading.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Awesome. Well, thank
Yeah.
you so much, and have a good rest of your weekend.
Yeah, you too. And
All
happy
right.
Valentine's Day also. It's a
Yes,
holiday.
happy
I forgot
Valentine's
about
Day.
that.
Yeah.
All right. See
All
you.
right. Bye.